Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Sunday, 31st of July, 2016. Just getting set up for outsiders and first dog on the moon.
Time now for Outsiders. I'm Barry Cassidy, and you're not. Such as Barry Cassidy's devotion. He may be on holidays. He still pops in to do that every Sunday morning. It's Barry. Joining me this morning are Tim Colbatch, former economics editor for The Age, author of Dick Hamer, The Liberal. James Carl, a researcher at the University of Melbourne, the School of Government there, and the man who brings you the G'day Patriots podcast on US politics, and Helen Andrews, policy analyst at the Centre for Independent Studies. Welcome to you all.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on.
We're all up and down the East Coast this morning. We've got me in Melbourne, we've got Brisbane, Canberra, Sydney. Oh, is there nothing we can't do? Now, you could be forgiven, maybe James, you can kick us off here, you could be forgiven for thinking American politics had reached some sort of climax with the conventions of the fortnight just past, but of course, it's only just begun.
Yes, it's really more of the proper starting gun, as you said, Jonathan, to get the race underway. In fact, it's hard as it is to believe for, I imagine, a lot of political and news junkies who are on the show and listening to the show, that a lot of Americans haven't been paying attention up to now. They have lives and families and careers to look after. And so this would be, this is the marker that begins I guess you'd call it a final sprint, but it's really far too long to call it that, isn't it? This is the final kickoff of the marathon stretch.
Well, we don't even get a debate, I think, for another 60 days, is that right?
That is correct. The first one is September 28th.
Much to be done until November. Of course, this week's highlight was the Democrat National Convention. Hillary Clinton got the nomination. The battle lines are drawn. Let's hear a bit of Clinton from the convention.
Don't let anyone tell you that our country is weak. We're not. Don't let anyone tell you we don't have what it takes. We do. And most of all, don't believe anyone who says, I alone can fix it.
Helen, it would seem that the Democrats are not going to be shy of really running head-on into Donald Trump. I mean, she basically called him a potential dictator during that speech.
She did, but I think looking at the whole of the speech, it showed a remarkable failure to adapt to the completely new circumstances of a Trump candidacy. She acted as if she were running against any old Republican with lines about, it sounded for a bit as if she thought she was running against Ayn Rand. And the Democrats are about togetherness, whereas the Republicans are about capitalism and every man for himself. In fact, Trump is the candidate who's trying to protect American workers from the ravages of global capitalism by securing the border, by negotiating better trade deals. She acted as if, the lineup of the convention made it sound as if the Democrats were the socially progressive party. But at the Republican convention, you had someone stand up and say, I'm proud to be gay, and he got cheered to the rafters. So I think the Democrats' convention was a bit of a disappointment in terms of adapting to new circumstances.
Which makes Trump incredibly hard to get a handle on, Helen, and also makes Trump the person standing up for the white working class, which was a group a little bit absent, perhaps, in the rhetoric of the Democrat convention.
Yes, and I think the fact that she selected Tim Kaine as her vice presidential running mate shows that the Clinton campaign is genuinely worried about winning back over those voters.
Tim Colbatch, is there a failure of understanding in the way that we're analysing American politics at the moment? And I think this spills over into our own politics in a small way as well. I mean, looking at Trump, as Helen suggests there, as a standard candidate, when clearly he's not.
Well, I certainly fail to understand American politics right now. It doesn't bear any resemblance to the country I lived in the 1980s. How anyone as ill-fitted to be president as Trump could have survived as long as he has through the Republican process by blackguarding any opponent, lying Ted Cruz and just promising more and more extreme solutions to complex problems. It amazes me, frankly. I don't understand it.
And yet there he is.
Can't shed any light on it.
Yet there he is, and the latest polling is still neck and neck. I mean, this is a man who could well be president, and which points to as much as it points to a difference in his style of politics, it also points to a failure in the tools of analysis.
Well, it's also a failure of growth over the last 40 years to deliver to the American middle class and working class people. That a great deal of the wealth and growth of wealth in America has gone to the top 1% and then to the top 10%, but particularly the top 1%. And they have established ownership almost of the political process, and nothing can get through Congress that is against their interests. And that is the only sense in which I can understand the rage of anger of ordinary Americans that their country has not worked for them, and that the old America we used to know of the middle class, of the vast expanding middle class, now has a shrinking middle class and more people who are just struggling to survive in the expectations they have.
Which creates a problem, James Carl, too, doesn't it? I mean, it's not just the country not working for many Americans, it's politics not working for many Americans. And then if you get a candidate so far from outside of politics as Donald Trump, how does politics personified, like Hillary Clinton, combat that?
Look, that's a question I'm sure the Clinton camp is mulling. But I think that I think I may have watched a different convention than Helen did, and a different speech. That wasn't my takeaway at all, that it was some sort of failure or disappointment, or there's no grasping of it. In fact, I think of Obama's speech on the Wednesday night and Hillary's speech on Thursday as being sort of two parts of the same, in that I sense they're actually going quite big, in that they're not just really going to run a straight Democrat, Republican, sort of left of center policies versus right of center policies. They're going after sort of your Jeb Bush your Jeb Bush Republican moderates by painting Trump as really un-American. They're placing. That's the thing that was found so remarkable when I watched Trump's speech last Thursday. I've been watching these for a very long time, and I'd never seen one that was so pessimistic, so dark, that so lacking in any connection to American history and American values. And I think that he left train-sized gaps that the Democrats could drive through, particularly optimism, a patriotism grounded in American diversity.
And that optimism was a key to Clinton's speech.
Absolutely. And can I say a third component that I didn't expect ever to see the Democrats exceed the Republicans in, and that was religion. There was many invocations of God. There were many invocations of religious people. One that comes to mind, particularly the mothers of the movement, the mothers of slain people of color, and it was a remarkable turnaround. I think that Trump is a sign of the failure of the primary process in the GOP side of things, in that he was someone that the entire leadership wanted nothing to do with, and it showed he exploited a massive gap between the GOP leadership and its voting base, and he ran a campaign optimized to win a primary campaign that about 15% of Americans participated in. And I think when the entire country participates, he's going to find that this is not such an effective strategy, the polls being tied at the moment, notwithstanding.
And yet, this is the pattern with Trump, is this consistent underestimation. He would never get a nomination. He would never win this primary. We have all the way down the line, Helen Andrews stopped short on gauging the true impact of Trump. And for Clinton, there was a really interesting, I think James alludes to it there, interesting balance in this convention too, by trying to play to the Sanders disgruntled in her own party, while simultaneously playing right across the other side to concerned centrist Republicans.
Well, yes, I think Hillary has a choice whether to tack left or to move to the center.
Can't she do both?
It looked to me like she has tended more to the left. But if I can just respond to the previous comment as well, I did see some testing out of the line that Trump is beyond the pale. He's an outrageous candidate. He would be a dictator. But I think if the Clinton campaign pursues that, it is going to backfire massively for a very simple reason. The people who are voting for Trump are doing so as a protest against the political establishment, almost a sign of desperation. And if Clinton says that Trump is outrageous and beyond the pale, that just sends the message, we haven't heard you. We haven't gotten the message. You have, made this desperate play because you're so disappointed with the political establishment that I personify, and none of it has registered. That's what I think that line of attack, that's the message it will send to the people who are voting for Trump, and that's why I think it would backfire.
Which is tricky, isn't it, Tim Colbatch? And to draw a local comparison, I mean, it's what people say about the Hansonite politics, is the more that you deride it as being, some sort of redneck racist rump, the more you empower that politics.
And but I think it does come back to the issue James raised about the size of the electorate that he now has to win over. And it's one thing to appeal to Republicans, but and yes, the opinion polls suggest that he's doing a fine job at the moment of appealing to the nation. But you look at the American political system, and remember, it's an electoral college, and the big states really dictate who wins power. And at the last election, Obama won 10 out of the 13 biggest states. And they're mostly the ones where the big cities are, and that's where the places that Trump has to win back. Florida, very important. How can he win without winning Florida?
When you look at the Electoral College map, it's a much better picture for the Democrats than the straight national polling. That's absolutely true.
Yep. And he can win big majorities in states like Montana and Idaho, but it doesn't really matter because they only have 3 Electoral College votes.
It probably does matter for the unity of the American people going forward, but that's probably another story. Outsiders this morning, Tim Colbatch, James Carl and Helen Andrews. Let's throw domestic here, and there were many big stories around, but Malcolm Turnbull, it has emerged, will not back Kevin Rudd for UN Secretary General. Is there a job here for former New Zealand PM Helen Clark? Well, this is an area in which Tom Gleeson quizzed Kevin himself a little while back.
Now, if Helen Clark becomes the leader of the UN, are you going to undermine her?
I think Helen's a great candidate. And
you're doing it now. This is how it starts.
I think Helen's a great candidate.
Yeah, see, that's it. That's you. This is what you're good at. It's your natural game. We love watching you do it.
I think she's a great candidate.
Oh, look at him go.
Helen Andrews, it was always a bit of a problem, Kevin Rudd's character, I think.
Yes, and which is why I'm so surprised at people saying that not nominating him for the job is a political play. Because if it were simply a matter of political calculation, you'd think they'd want him front and center to remind the electorate just why they don't like the Labour Party.
Tim Colbatch, was this a sign of Malcolm Turnbull's hamstrunginess by the right of his party, or was it just the only real path possible?
Possibly it was the only real path possible for Turnbull, given where he is. But yes, it does indicate that he is hamstrung by the right of his party, because unless you regard Rudd as a complete liar, his letters do suggest that imply that at least last year Turnbull had given support, and I don't think that's challenged. What is challenged is whether he still was supporting him in May. And I think, yes, we know about Rudd's limitations, to put it mildly. I mean, he was a hopeless prime minister. He was a hopeless administrator, a hopeless prime minister in the sense of being an administrator who could make decisions, prioritise, and get things done in reasonable time. He would always want more reports. He would always want to put off the decision.
It's ideally suited to the United Nations.
Yeah, well, I mean, how can we seriously want the UN, anyone who believes in the UN, seriously want Rudd to be its Secretary General? But Phil Curry wrote a very good piece in the Financial Review yesterday, which swung my mind on this. I have been against Rudd, Australia supporting Rudd or nominating him. But I think Phil says, well, basically, he's not going to win anyway. We are not deciding whether Rudd becomes UN Secretary General or not. We are just deciding whether he's allowed to run.
Yes.
And he should have been allowed to run. And why wasn't he allowed to run? Because Turnbull had to bow to the right wing of the Liberal Party, which was against it.
Our politics is a tad small at times like these, it would seem. Look, thanks to our outsiders this morning.
Okay, starting a new video.